Okay, so to actually get some scrolling to happen, we have to have a method that we can call to do the scrolling, right? Because the most intuitive way, I think, to do this is actually set it up so that when we can add a character here, and the character will respond to the keyboard, any of the keyboard stuff. But if anything needs to be passed on to the world to say, "Hey, world, scroll yourself," then the actor will handle that. But there needs to be some kind of a method here in the scrolling world so that the actor can say, "Hey, world, scroll yourself." So let's create that method here. So I'm going to go down. One thing that's kind of a convenience tool that Greenfoot has, if you haven't seen this one yet, you can actually say insert method and it'll stick a method in for you. So this isn't the method we want, but it gives us our nice yellow box, and we have our brace opening, closing braces, and a properly constructed method signature and all that stuff. So it's kind of nice to have that. So but we want to do something that's going to scroll, right? And we don't need a return value because it's a command. We're telling it to do something, and we want to scroll it by a certain a certain amount, either in the x direction or the y direction. And when I'm using changes in x and y, I usually say dx and dy to denote delta x and delta y. It's common notation for it, meaning a change in x or a change in y. So this is going to be dy. I'll just say change in y, and we also need the same thing for x, right? dx, change in x, and it doesn't return anything, so you don't need that. And we're just going to say, scrolls on the background if possible, okay? Because we're not necessarily going to be able to scroll if we're at the edge of the image. We don't want to try and keep going, right? So so the way we're going to handle that, we don't need a return value. So the way I want to handle this, like we want to test first to see if the x and the y are okay. I'm going to start by just with a new x equals, and it's going to be x minus dx. So the reason I'm saying minus, again, I want the movement on the screen to be intuitive. So if I am an actor and I want to go left, I want to tell the screen, scroll -4, right? But we already saw, how the drawing the image makes things kind of work backwards the way you'd think. So we want to be able to. So I'm going to flip it. I'm going to say minus dx. So then that way, if I'm saying scroll -4, it'll look like my character's moving to the left because I'm scrolling my screen to the right. So anyhow, makes sense. I think it'll make sense once you see it happening, and if not, you can write it the way you want to write it. But okay, so what do I got to do? So remember we said here, if we do this get height minus scroll image get height, remember that made it so that we got to the bottom of the screen, right? So that tells us, well, this is the bottom of the screen, right? 0 is one edge, and this big negative number is the other edge, right? So we can use the same idea with the width. We can say if get width minus scrolling image dot get width is less than or equal to our new x. And, right, because we want our new x can't get any smaller than that, than this big negative number, right? And we want new x to also be less than or equal to 0, right? Because it can't go, because if it's bigger than 0, remember that's when we saw that, we start the drawing down here when we had our 40, 60. It started drawing like down here someplace. So we want to be less than 0, but not so small that we're, not so big negative that we're off the screen. Okay, so that's that check. And then we can say, if that's the case, then let's go ahead and set x to that new x, okay? And, oh yeah. So actually, I didn't even set that up, did I? We need to have, so what I'm thinking is we need to have an x and a y field that we can use for this drawing. So, yeah, so let me put that in. I forgot to put that in. Let's see. So let's say, let's put it up here. Put it here. Private int x and private int y, and we'll set our initials values in here. We'll say x, because we want to decide we're going to have our x be equal to 0, so here's our x, right? And then our y is going to be equal to this, right? Like. And then, so then this can just be xy, right? X and y. Okay, so let's just say, actually, let's make this be a method. We could just call this like render image or something, because I want to use that in the constructor, and I want to use it down here because I want to render my image when I first create the world, when I first compile, and then for all my scrolling, right? So I'm going to add another method here and call this one. This is going to be another void. This is just going to be a command. This is just going to be like render background or something, right? And then doesn't need any inputs. And I'll just say draw the background at coordinates x, y. All right, and all that's going to do is this. So I'm just doing a cut and paste here. Paste. All right. So, and then I can just say here, render background. Because I'm also going to render the background at the end of my scroll method. And this is really like a teeny tiny method. I just, it's just a habit that you want to get into. If you have anything that you don't want to repeat over and over, then you should stick it in a method. So even though this is just one line, I'm not a very good typist, and I just don't want to, mess this up the next time I write it. So I'm rendering the background when I first create it, and then when I do a scroll. So okay, so here, so trying to do a scroll again, we got our new x, our new y, and we're checking to make sure that the new x value is okay, and if it is, then I set x to the new value, and I'm going to do something similar with the y. If get height, right? Oh, actually, do I still have that one? Yeah. So I do cutting and pasting as much as I can because, again, like I said, I'm a bad typist and I don't like to. I'm prone to make mistakes. Okay, y equals new y. All right, so now what is this saying? So this is saying if the, if the new x is okay in range, okay, then go ahead and set the new x, and if the y looks like it's in range, in a reasonable range, then set the new y, and then render the background. So actually, since this is public, we might be able to what did I do? It says semicolon expected. So did I? Oh, I put an extra parentheses in here. There we go. Okay, so now it's like that. So now, actually, let's see. I have this scroll method. I can try actually scrolling with this. So let's say if I want to scroll minus 200 and minus 300. See what happens. Yoink! It moved, okay? Alright, cool. So now we have it so that the world knows how to scroll. Now we have to set it up so that when you put an actor in the world and you start playing around with the keys and stuff like that, it looks like the actor's moving around in the world.